Thank you for reminding me. So yeah, we could do the Crud actions, list, maybe try to find the breeds and species. We could get, about the page, like some, or about pet, log it. We could get the average age, get all the live page. Wait, what was I writing here? List. Oh, I was going to say list of toys. Maybe we want to add a toy. We can almost think about, this would be a little more complicated, like CRUD on toy. Like what if we want to update a toy or like the breed or the type? Because those are kind of nested data structures. So that might be a little more challenging. So we'll see if we get to that. But cool. So I'm maybe gonna let's actually do a CRUD action. And for this, we're not going to be, and for the homework, you don't have to worry about getting user input. You can just assume like, okay, here's a new pet, add it to the list. So let's do create. Now, for all of these, we're going to have the rule, we cannot change any of the data above. Like, so we can't push to our pets array. We can't do like, Zoe.name equals and change the name. We have to create new objects. We have to create new arrays. So that's kind of our restriction. So let's do create. So for all of these, let's create functions that do this for us. So we'll get some practice writing functions. So I could say const like add pet. Well, this function should take a pet and it should add it. So how do we add without changing to the array? Well, we can take our pets and add the pet. And we want to return this. Or I could just do this all in one line. Okay. Now, actually, let me do this the other way because I kind of want to show this just so this is clear. And let's just test this out. Let's get rid of, I'm just going to get rid of, how do you say that? Subuka? I'm going to get rid of that pet, but I'm going to add it right here. So add pet Subuka. And then we can set this to a variable like let new pets.
It's just Subaka, Russian for dog.
Subaka. That's about log new pets. Subaka. So our original array is not changed, and we can see if that one has it added. I can see it right there. There's Subaka. This might be a lot of data to work with, but it's there. if I wanted to, I could maybe comment some of those out just to see that, my first array just has that object. And then when I add it, now it's adding Subaka. So it's not changing the original array, but it's adding it. Now, is anyone noticing something different about this than in Ruby? With like this pets right here, line 124, this pets. So like, let's think about scope. Remember, I'm defining pets right here, but then I'm using it in the function. In Ruby, that would break, right? In JavaScript, it doesn't. So there's not really there's not that distinction between like that instance variable. Like if you declare a variable in your JavaScript file, you can use it anywhere in that file. Cool. So there's our add. Pretty simple, right? Let's do update. And I'm going to, for now, like not worry about type. We'll see why in a second, but this is going to update everything except we're not going to try to update our type right now. We'll just let that one be. But let's say we want to update the name or the age or the likes or dislikes, whatever. We can do that. So let's think about how we can update something. So let's say, yeah, let's just go ahead and define this function, const update pet. Oh, you know what I should have done with all of these? I'm going to add an ID to all of these. This will just make this that much easier because this is how we're going to do this. So I'm adding an ID to all of these, which is just going to be a number, and I just need to make sure it's unique. So no pet has the same ID. It's not like it has to be in order or anything, but it just has to be something unique. So go ahead and add IDs to all of your pets and just make sure it's unique. How many pets do we have anyway? Okay. So now they all have this unique identifier, which we get from Rails database. So everything from a database is going to have this ID, which can be useful to us. So this is going to take a let's say this takes a pet or like the updated, let's just assume we're getting back that full object, which is the updated pet. And then we're getting back the ID of the pet. I mean, really with the updated pet, we have the ID. So that's actually all we need. Updated pet data. And this is actually going to go through our array. It's going to create a new array. Should we just do one pet? Let's make, sorry, I'm making this complicated. Let's say update name. Let's just start with something simple. And this takes in the name, the new name. Let's do age because that's probably a little more realistic. We're going to update the age. New age. Sorry. And this should also take in the pet that we want to update. Well, let's actually do the ID of the pet. So we have to find it. So we have to take the ID of the pet and then we have the new age. So first of all, we need to find the pet. Okay, so let's go through and let's do this. Let's go through the array and find our pet. Kind of make this a little more challenging. So let's go say let pet equal pets.find. So the find method is one of these array methods that I can go through all of the things in my array. And then it's going, when it finds that first thing, it's going to return it. So it's exactly like filter. The only difference between find and filter is find's going to return the first thing it finds. Filter returns all of them. So I want to go through each pet. And does the pet.id equal the ID? So I go through each pet and I'm just checking, hey, does that pet ID equal the ID that was passed? If it does, that's the pet. And now we can update it. So now we can return. I just want to clone my pet, but I want to change the age to that new age. Just be a little obnoxious and write this in one line. Don't think you would want to do this because this is probably going to be messy, but we could probably, oh, no, let's not do it. Okay, never mind. I'm not going to write that in one line. But let's go ahead and test this. So I could say something like let, I don't care, like updated pet. That's going to be like update age. Let's go ahead and pass 1 and then make it like 1,000. Console.log updated pet. That doesn't seem right. Because this is just returning the age. It's not actually has any of that other information. So let's console.log the pet right here. I don't know if I'm finding it. Yeah, that's undefined. So this is not finding my pet. Pet ID 1. Do I have the wrong method? Give me 1 second. Find. I'm just Googling the find method with JavaScript. What?
Is it because you commented out all the pets in your pet array?
Oh, yes, that is exactly why. Okay. Yeah, so oh man, thank you. I was like, yeah, that's a tough one because I was like, what's going on? Yeah, so I don't have that pet because I commented it out. Now let's run that. There we go. There's my pet, updated pet. It's large, it's still the same, but now it's 1,000 years old. Okay, so let's do another update. This one, I want it to take a pet, an updated pet, and update the list of pets. So I could, like, essentially I want to take, like, let's say we updated this one pet and we just changed the age. But I want to do this with all of, like, I want to change my whole array. Okay. So, and let's just keep this simple. I'm going to do an update pet, and we're just going to update the age again. So I want to find, like, really, let's just do it like this. I want to update the age of one pet, but, return the array with the updated pet in it. And I'm not going to use the function above. I could, but I'm not going to because I kind of want to show this. Because it's like, you'll maybe do this every now and then. You just want to go in and you want to update one attribute in this whole array of things because you want to return a new array. Because if this is React, what you want to do is, because like we'd be displaying this list of pets on our UI. And maybe we want to change the age of the dog. So we want to go and change the age of the dog, but then we still want to return that new array of the pets so we can re-render that new array. But we just change that one thing. So let's do const, let's just update pets. So this once again is going to take the ID and then the new age. So it's very similar, but we're going to update the array. But we can't change the array. So for this one, let's just say the updated pets. I'm still going to go through my pets. Any idea I could do for each map, push, find? Any guesses? Or educated responses? Starts with an M. I'm going to map over them. Because map returns a new array with updated, and I can like change the values. I can go through each thing and I can change the values. So if you're thinking you want to update in an array, map is going to be your method. So I map over those. It's going to go through each pet. Let's do this in one line. So I'm going to go through each pet. Does the pet.id equal the ID that was given to me in the function? If it does, let's clone that pet and then change the age to the age that was given to me. If the IDs don't match, then just return the pet. this a, sorry, I wrote this wrong. Go away thing. I have a syntax error somewhere right here. So I'm giving my map a function. The function is just like, here's the pet. Do the IDs match? If they do match, that means that's the pet I want to update. So copy all the fields of that pet and then just only change the age. If the IDs don't match, I don't want to do anything with that. Just return that pet in the new array. We're using a ternary. I could also, if you want, if this makes more sense, I could write it like this, but it's good. It's the same. I'm doing the same things. I could say, if you want this to be more explicit, you could do an if statement. If pet.id equals the ID that was given to me, return, spread out over the pet, and then replace the age with the new age. I don't need the else because remember the return returns, or else I can just return pet. So I'll comment that one out. Now this needs to return that updated pets, or I could just say return right here and not even store that. I don't really even need to store that to a variable.
Hey, would you mind telling me the difference between spread and clone real quick? Because they both have those 3 dots.
Yeah, that's spreading. So if you do, spread is like the specific way to refer to this in JavaScript. Like I'm spreading over this object, or I'm spreading out over the array. That's like what it's called in JavaScript. Cloning is a more generic term for I'm cloning this thing. And cloning's it's a common term in coding, because cloning, I mean, think about what cloning really is. It's a clone of something. You would have 2 separate things that would look exactly the same. And let's actually talk about why that is important. Because let's say I have a person, let's just say James equals James. Okay, and then I say let X equal James. And then I say let Y equal ... James. So, oh, sorry, I did that wrong. Now, when we talk about like, are things equal, like equality in coding, it kind of depends on what you mean by equality. So here, when I'm saying, I first declare this variable, right? In memory, I have this variable called James, and it's just an object. Now, I create another variable called X, and I set that equal to James. Maybe I need like a little whiteboard to draw this out. Let me stop sharing. Can you see my whiteboard? Okay, so with that example, I have like a James variable. Hey, I should just get on my iPad, but I'll take a second. So I have this James variable, and that's my object, and that goes and gets stored in memory. I mean, this is not how it works, but there's my object. Name is whatever, there's my object with the value. And that's in memory. And so when I say like X equals James, what I'm really saying is, hey, I'm creating this variable called X, and I'm pointing it to that spot in memory. So when I'm talking about equality, James and X are like the exact same thing because they have the same address in memory. So they're exactly identical. But when I do the ... operator and set that equal to Y, so this is a clone, I'm cloning it. Like that goes and creates a new thing in memory with that value in there. Name James. You get the point. So when I ask, are these two things equal? Well, it depends on what you mean by equal. Are the values the same? Because they're both an object that have a key name and the value is James. So like they're the same. It's kind of like if you had like 2 cans of Coke. Like you have 1 and 2, like you have 2 separate cans of Coke. Like they're the same in the sense that like they're both Coke. You're not going to know the difference, but they're different in the fact that they're 2 different cans. So that's what that thing is. But when I set like a variable equal to like another thing in memory, those are the exact same. They just have a different name. So when you clone something, it's creating something new in memory.
In this case, with updating it, it's also deleting the old thing, right? And we only have the new thing.
No, and that's a little different. Like with how we're updating it, we have our array in memory, and then we update it. We leave that thing in memory, and we're cloning it. We create a whole new one. So we leave the original thing unchanged and create a new one. So that's what we're doing. And that's what that, like, when we talk about cloning and coding, I think it's 2 distinct things that it's an identical twin. Like they look the same, but they're 2 different things.
Okay, but as far as us using the pets array, we are using the updated one, right? Like because we're actually changing the pets array.
No, we're not changing the pets array. All of these methods, like the map returns a new array. It's not even cloning. We're not cloning anything. It's just returning a new array. So this creates a new array in memory and leaves the pets array alone. And those aren't even equal in any sense of the word. Like they're different arrays. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but like when we did Crud with React, when you update something, aren't you updating it for a purpose? Like, don't we want it to affect?
It's a distinction. Like it's a subtle thing, because the pets.map function is creating an updated array. It's a different array than the original one, but the original one's unchanged. But we're going to use that new updated array to then change our UI.
Okay, so we are working with the new one that's updated.
Yeah, like with React, you map it and then you take that new array and then you like call that set state method or like the set users. I mean, we have barely talked about that, but yeah, you're going to use that new updated array to then change the UI. But behind the scenes, the original array that you called the map function on, that doesn't change.
Mhm.
And it's kind of, it doesn't, it's really not useful knowledge like to really know that now. Like you can definitely get away without knowing that, I just got to use map to change this array. But yeah, in React, if you were to do like pets.push instead of map, and then like return pets, React's not going to like that. So this update pets method would still return an updated array, but it's like, man, I'm changing that original pets array. And React wants to keep track of that previous state because it compares it to this new state. And then that makes it like help it render to the UI faster. So we don't want to change that original value because React wants to use it behind the scenes.
Well, and in this case, that SDF wouldn't be in the new one, right? The updated one, because it's not in the map. And you're returning, maybe it doesn't matter. We don't have to get deep into this.
Yeah, like if I push a pet in here, let's just say that's an actual pet. This would add it to my pets array and then return that updated pets array. Well, I wouldn't want to push it, but like I could like find the index and add the pet and update, and then I could update it with another method than map. Or like the easy way to update this would to go to my pets, find the index of the pet I want to update and say like .age equals new age. Like that's the way more intuitive way to do this. Like instead of passing me the ID, pass me the index.
Okay, but that one's actually affecting the original. And that's why
Yeah,
you should do it like that, because you're like creating a new one and then also affecting the original.
yeah. So this one, I want to be creating a new array. I would be going in changing the original array, and then I could return that. But yeah, I would have changed the original array, which React would be like, no bueno. So yeah, I think I'm glad you asked that. It's like kind of good to clarify that. I think that can be a little confusing because a lot of it is kind of just for like, we're not really seeing it. We just have to do it. Cool. Let's see here. Did we even test this? This actually, I'm trying to think if this is going to break. It might. So let's do our updated pets. I'm going to get rid of this index. So let's go ahead and update the last one just because that's easy to find. So the last one has an ID of 13. And then let's do the age like 10,000. Console.log y. Run this. Hope I didn't save that. I feel like that got rid of it. Right? Return pets.map. It's console.log my pets. I feel like that did delete it, which is not what I want to do. Did I do something stupid again? Yes, I did. Oh my God. Ugh. Okay. The last pet is technically 12 because I think I removed that pet. Okay, sorry. So it didn't find the ID, so it didn't update anything. So my last pet is technically Zoe with the ID of 12. So I never threw Subaka in there. So let's run that. So Zoe's 1,000, and that worked. So now I updated that one field in the array of objects. And if we were using React and you wanted someone change just the age of one pet, that's how you would need to do this. You need to map over all the pets, find the one pet you do want to update, then you can clone that pet, but then update the one field or the fields you want to update. If not, just return that pet, just leave it alone and put it back into the array. Let's delete a pet. Delete a Pete. Okay, so const delete pet. So for this one, we just need the ID. Any ideas of the methods? So really your choices between like map for each and filter. Maybe some more, but like 95% chance it's one of those.
We do filter.
Yeah, we do filter because we want to remove. Filter allows us to remove things and keep things. So what I want to do is I want to go through all my array of pets and just remove that one pet that I want to delete. So I could do like return my pets dot filter. So go through all of the pets. And as long as the pet.id that I'm currently iterating over does not equal the ID that was passed, then we can keep it. And if I have an implicit return, write it like that. Or it's just one, I'm just doing this in one line. So I'm returning pets.filter, which is taking a function that returns a Boolean that just says, hey, does the ID equal the ID that was passed? So I'm just writing this in a different syntax. If I really wanted to write this out all the way, let's just write this out one more way just to get some practice with writing out functions in JavaScript. Let's say return pets.filter. Go through each pet. And let's just do return pet.id not equal ID. So those two would do the same thing. Let me show you this. Why would it be bad style or considered bad practice to do something like this? I'm saying like I have an if statement, here's my Boolean, and then this if statement's going to do return true or return false.
Just because it's redundant and messy?
Yeah, it's redundant. And that makes it messy. So this is something that beginner programmers will do every now and then. yeah, I don't need to check. So if I have something that's evaluating to true or false, I don't need to check to see if it's like saying if true, return true, if false, return false. Like it's unnecessary. And I definitely did that as a beginner. So we don't need to do that. And yeah, it just makes your code messy. This is a better way to do that. And I don't, as far as whether you use like this way, I can write out cleanly in one line. I think it's not that I'm trying to write stuff out in one line because it like looks nice. Sometimes like condensing stuff into one line can make it more readable. Sometimes it can make it more confusing because you're trying to do too much in one line. So I would say between these two, I would leave. I'm not going to say one is better than the other. It's whichever more readable to you. In my mind, this is more readable to me because it's a little cleaner, but I also, I think I have like more experience with JavaScript. I think if you're new to JavaScript, that might be confusing to be like, well, what's going on there exactly? This one's a little more explicit. So this one might be better as you're learning because you have to say like return this and return that. So, but you can choose on that one. So let's go ahead. Let's do like a map. Let's do a map. So like a read. So let's say we want to go through a list of pets and get some info. So like list, because we're kind of, as we're printing this out, this is kind of messy. So let's just say like list name of pets. Okay, so let's do this. Const get names. And this is kind of like a trick question, but I'll get like, do I want to use for each or map?
For each, because we don't care about getting a new array for this one, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of why it's a trick question because it's like, well, if I just want to log the names, to the console, then I would say for each is the better one. If I want an array of the names, then I want to use map. So sometimes it just depends on what you want to do. So let's say for this one, we want to log the names. So then we could do pets dot for each, go through each pet. And yeah, go ahead and just interpolate this. Pet dot name. Maybe let's log the ID as well. Pet dot ID. Oh yeah, I need to log this. So dot log. So this doesn't return anything. It just goes through each of my pets and logs them to the console. So there we go. Now I have a cleaner way to maybe go check out my pets. Let's do this in the function. If I want an array of the name, let's say name and ID in the object. But yeah, this is where I'd want to use the map. And then instead of logging this, I'm going to return that. And we can return it. I mean, maybe let's just return it as a string. We'll just keep it the same. So maybe I could call that like get names array. Now this one I need to store to a variable. And then log that out. See, my get names, I just need to call this function because this function will console.log each of the pets. But the get names is just returning the pets. This kind of this updated string. Let's kind of see what that looks like. The one for each is going to log him. The map returns me the array of the strings. Cool. Average age. Let's do average age just because this will get us to use reduce because we haven't talked about reduce. And this would be a good use case for reduce. Okay, so we want to find the average age of all the pets. And maybe reduce will be good for this one too. So we'll look at some use cases of reduce. So let's just say const get average age. Has anyone tried using reduce or seen it? Okay, so reduce. Let me do this just in Node really quick. So let's say I have a nums array. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can call this reduce method on it. Nums.reduce. I forget the order. We'll figure it out. So nums takes like all of these. It takes a function. Let me just see what the order is. I always forget the order. Reduce. Come on, give me the hint. All right, we'll just figure it out. I think it starts with the accumulator and the thing. So in this case, this would be the num. So I'm just going to stick with this for thing right now. So it takes a function. Here's our function. And it's like every one of these these iterators, it goes through each thing in the array and calls this function. Now, what this function does, or what this function returns, is going to be the value of this accumulator in the next function call. So you're returning this accumulator to the next function call, and then you can do something, change that accumulator, and then pass it to the next function call. It's kind of crazy like that. So that this accumulator is kind of changing, and it's what we're returning from this function. So let's kind of look at an example of that. So I could do the accumulator. Let's say I want to find the sum of these numbers. I'm going to do nums.reduce. So the accumulator is going to keep track of like what I've added. So the first time around, let me make sure this is working. X, oh, I need to not have those brackets there. Okay. So that's 15, right? 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 is 15. So what happens is, yeah, this function gets called, the first time when it's 1. So that becomes the accumulator for the next time, the next iteration. So the accumulator is 1, and then the thing is going to be 2 for the next one. So 1 plus 2 is 3. So we return that value 3, which becomes the accumulator for the next function calls. Then we do 3 plus 3, which is 6, and so forth. We can also pass this a value. So the first argument is the function. We can also pass it a second argument, which can be the default value of the accumulator. Because if you don't give it a default value, it's going to start off at 0. So we could say, hey, I want to start the accumulator off at 10. So then that's 25. So if I want to find the average age, I can call pets.reduce. And instead of, I don't have to call this accumulator and thing. Like maybe I want to call this like, because what this is this is the like, total age or something. And then this is the pet itself. So I can go through this and say, hey, total age, plus return total age plus the pet.age. Or this is the like, maybe I should call this the age accumulator or something. And this is going to be like my sum. Age sum equals that. And then for this, if I want to find the average, I just need to return the age, just some math here, times or divided by. So I grab I add up all the ages, and then I just divide it by the pets.length. I keep on spelling return wrong. Oh, and then since I renamed this, I need to rename that. I've totally screwed up the ages, I feel like, because I'm going to change these so they're not all crazy. Because our average age should be something like, I don't know, 7. So let's just do console.log average age. We can just call that right there. Nan. So I'm getting nan inside of here. So nan in JavaScript refers to not a number. So that makes me think somewhere inside of here, I don't know, I didn't do something right. So I actually don't want to do this in one line because I want to now log. I can't do this in one line because what I want to do is console.log pet.age. And then I can return that. Because now I want to inspect what my pet.age is. Pets.length. Oh, okay. Let's try. Those look like all valid numbers. Let's see if I'm getting the sum right. Console.log age sum. Since pet is an object, I might need to say, hey, start at 0 here. Yeah. I think since it was looking at this type, and I think it was using that as the default value. Like it was like, oh, pets and objects. So I'm gonna just set that to you for a default object. So I need to say, hey, start off at 0 for me. It's a good idea anyway, just to set that so you can see it. I always do that anyway. Just good practice because it's not always going to be a number. The nice thing about reduce is it can return any type of data. And there we go. There's our 5.2. Let's see how we can maybe use the reduce. I'm trying to think. List different breeds and species. Probably use the reduce for that. Let's try doing that with the reduce. Let's just grab a list of unique species, right? Because we have in here, we have like canine in here twice, we have feline in here twice, and cat. So I want a new array of all the species in here, but no duplicates. And I want to try to do this with the map method. There's also a set method, or we can use a set data structure, which would probably be the better way, but let's see if we can do this with map. Just for fun. Cool. Where do I want to do this? Let's do this right here. Oh, I have the comment up here somewhere. Delete pets. Did I delete that method? I guess I deleted it. Okay, we'll do it down here. Get a list of all, distinct species. Using reduce. You could use, I think, other options would be for each. This would be another good use case for each. Or you could use, the set, what's called a set, but let's do it with reduce. So this is the type of thing when you like start doing your homework. If we give you like brain teasers like this, I'm not going to be expecting your code to look the same, because some of you might be writing your functions like as one-liners, some of you might be doing the returns. When you get to some of these specific brain teasers, there's different ways to solve it. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's do get const get distinct species, stacked distinct. Okay, and we're going to use the reduce. So we're going to do pets dot reduce. And I'll just call this, I just like calling this the accumulator. And then this can be the pet. So there's my function. Now I want to default this as an empty array, because I want this to return in an array. So my default value is going to be in an array. So my accumulator will start off as an array. So now I want to check, does accumulator contain pet dot species? So we can do that. So we can do our accumulator. So what type of data is my accumulator?
An object? Or sorry, default to an array.
Yeah, it's an array, and I want it to stay in an array the whole time. So arrays have like defined, filter. I just want an array of strings, so I can actually use this includes method. And includes is simple enough where I can, let me just show you. Let's see this being demo. So let's say I have, my num array. Just 1, 2, 3. Let's make these strings because that's what we're working with. Or that's what we will be working with. So I'll call this str. So I could do str dot include, the string 1. Or is it includes? Is it includes? Okay, that's true. And if I give it like 5, that's false. So I can just, with strings and integers, I don't have to do like a callback. I can just actually throw in the string, which is pet.species. So this is my Boolean. So I could do an if-else statement, or I could do a ternary. Because what I want to do, let's write this as a ternary just to get some practice. I want to return my new accumulator. So if my accumulator includes the species, so if that's true, return the accumulator. If not, let's spread out over our accumulator and add the pet.species. So if it's not in the array, we return our copied accumulator with the new species added. That becomes the accumulator for the next loop or the next thing. If it does have it, we leave it unchanged. And once again, this is some practice with ternaries. And as you'll see, ternaries, once you get used to them, they are cleaner. I think so. Because we could write that like that. 2 different ways. Like this. All right, let's actually test this, see if it works. Console.log, get distinct species. Actually need to call that before we log it. Let's exit. Damn it, it's undefined. Did I spell species wrong? Why is that undefined? Oh, type. Okay, so I need to do pets. So pet does not have a species. That should still return an empty array. What am I doing wrong here? Because it's really pet dot type dot species. So that's my first mistake. Now we get this nice little syntax where return. So here's like, this is my if. If true, return that, else return that. Let's try running this. That's still undefined. Crap. Okay, so now I need to do some debugging. So let's go ahead and console.log my pet. And console.log my accumulator. And this can be a nice way to see the reduce in action is to log the accumulator and to log the pet. What is going on here?
Do you have to return on line 219?
Yes, I do. God damn it. Oh my God, how did I do that? Okay, yeah. I saw that right as you said it. I didn't want you to catch me on that. Yes, I do. Yeah, but notice I'm logging the accumulator and I'm logging the pet. So here's the first time around. There's my accumulator. There's the pet. And then it adds feline. Now this time the species is a cat, so we add cat. Next time around, the species is a dog, so our accumulator, we add dog. There's a mouse, we add mouse. Now it's a dog, we don't add dog because we already have it. We have canine, so we add canine, feline. It's spelled differently, so we add it. And so forth. And yeah, I forgot to return that. So slap my wrist. But yeah, so the reason I was confused at the start, because I also had this typo where I did pet.species, and why that was why was confusing me, and I should have caught the error then as well, is this was returning undefined. Now even if this should just return the empty array, I believe, or yeah, undefined in there. So there's my empty array. So I was expecting the empty array. Now I forgot the type as well. So that was my second mistake. And there we go.
So
What was that? You want to maybe Slack it?
sorry, I moved my mic. The pink brackets at the bottom there, what did that call up to again? If you go down to the console, yeah, right there.
Right here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm console.logging get distinct species. These pink ones, is that what you're asking about?
Correct. Just trying to recall.
Yeah, so this is kind of what we talked about at the beginning. This is calling the function. My function then reduces this and then it returns that array. And then I'm just logging that. I could have written this like let, reduce things equal this. And then log reduce things. Or I could just this one's just throwing it in the variable and then logging, the variable. This one I could just actually call the function inside of my function, which is going to return the array. So that gets called, there's my array, and then I log it. Does that make sense? It's like math when, you have like a parentheses and you have like 1 + 1. And then you have other parentheses, 1 plus that. Like it's first going to evaluate this inner one to 2. And then we do the 1 + 2. So with this, before it actually logs this to the console, it's actually going to run this function and finish it. Then we get our array, boom, and then we log it. Is that kind of what you were asking? Or does that answer your question?
Yes, that does.
Okay, cool. So yeah, there's another way to do this, or another way. I can't remember. I could like map. So I could map my pets and go through each of my pets and, you know, return just the pet dot type dot species. Let's call this 1. Let's just test this out. So this should return just the array of strings, but we have some duplicates in here. Then I could spread out over this. Well, there's like, let me do this. Let me copy this array. I kind of want to show you this in Node. Let's say x equals that. Oh, cool, that did work. So I could do something like this. I can use this new set. So a set is it's a data type. It's a common data type in a lot of languages. It's just like unique values. If you have a set of something, it's going to be like unique values. So you can, with a lot of languages, you can like pass it in an array and then it'll give you all this distinct values. So I can do new set. Now this is not in an array. This is just the set of strings that are unique. So I can set this set, let's just call this set equal to this function. New set. So if I type set, that is the thing. But something I actually can do, I can spread out. Is this the way I spread out over a set into an array? So I can spread out over that set and add it to the array. Now I have an array of strings. So to do this in one line, spread out over that new set, map over, like, so I map over, and Lee, this kind of goes back to what you were asking, kind of this like order of evaluation and order. So sometimes this can be confusing when you're learning to code to do these things in one line, but then again, it kind of forces you to kind of understand what's going on. So the first thing we're doing is, it's kind of like we got to go in and do those nested params in like a math equation. Like it's exactly like that. If I was doing like 1 plus 1, and then inside of there's plus 1 plus, you know, 1. We would go in and evaluate this one first, which would be 2. And then we'd be like, oh, let's do that one. Then that's 3. Then we could do 1 times 3, that'd be 3, and then that'd be 4. So when I write these as one line, it's doing that exact same thing. So what is it doing first? This is the most inner thing. So it's going to map over my pets and return that new array of strings. And I'm just going to copy and paste this so I can kind of like visually do this. So this would get evaluated, and now we would have an array of strings, and there might be duplicates inside of here, but we would get that array of strings. And then from there, we create our new set. And then bam, we get our new set with only the unique things. So I get rid of any duplicates. So there's our set. And then we can spread out over that set, which would just convert that to an array of strings. And then we return it. And then we finally return that array. So let's go ahead, log that. There we go. So like I said, different way, they both solve this problem. And for now, that's really what we care about. Cool. I think that's good for today. Your homework's going to be kind of similar to doing stuff like this, having an array of objects, creating functions to perform, like to do these little brain teasers on it. So practice experimenting, writing these functions the different ways you can. Like don't have your functions just to do the exact same thing. Try doing some of this like one line type stuff. Try using some ternaries. Ternaries we're going to use them a ton. So definitely get some practice with those. Yeah, and just get practice with just the syntax. Because I think that's one of the hardest parts about JavaScript is the syntax. And it's also another hard part of it is just it's very functionally, like how functional it is, like by functions and like functions. But it also makes it like really useful. I think it makes it fun to code in. I like JavaScript and React. That's my preference. So, because React's a lot of fun because you're doing a lot of this like little brain teaser type stuff. Sorry, did I talk over someone?
I was just ask if you're going to Slack that whole thing in.
Oh yeah, for sure. Let me Slack that out. Yep. Cool. Any questions? This is a lot of information, but this stuff that we're talking about, we're really getting to like, this is what we're going to be doing from here on out. So I know it's a lot of, we just keep throwing new stuff at you, and we always will. We always throw new stuff at you, but like you're going to be using this. So cool. Did I stop recording?